the missing regiment, when 800 soldiers walked into the mist and vanished from this world. Gallipoli, 1915. The most mysterious mass disappearance in the history of human warfare. 1. An afternoon when 800 people walked in and none came back. The battlefields of Gallipoli, August 1915. The Turkish sun blazed without mercy. The smell of gunpowder, blood, and scorched earth merged into a thick, suffocating air. The Norfolk Regiment, affectionately known as the Sandringham Company, was a unit apart. Most of them were gardeners, gamekeepers, and servants from King George V's Royal Sandringham estate. They were ordinary men, familiar faces, hands calloused by spades rather than rifles, who had walked into the war believing everything would be all right. They were wrong. On 12th of August 1915, the order to advance was given. Colonel Proctor Beauchamp led the unit forward into dense forest, across rugged terrain, into a place where darkness and light intertwined as though reality itself was beginning to blur. General Ian Hamilton, Commander-in-Chief of British forces at Gallipoli, later reported that a very mysterious thing occurred. He explained, the Norfolk Company had advanced beyond the rest of the British line. The terrain grew ever more wooded and treacherous. Yet Colonel Beauchamp, with 16 officers and 250 men, kept pushing forward, driving back the enemy before them. They charged into the forest, and that was the last time anyone saw them. No final gunshots, no screaming, nothing at all. They walked in, and no one came back. 4 eyewitnesses and a cloud that was not a cloud. This is the part that turns this story into something more than a war story. If it had ended with soldiers vanished in dense jungle, it would be a war tragedy, terrible but not unheard of. In 1965, at exactly 50 years after the event, a New Zealand ex-sailor named Frederick Reichard came forward with testimony he had kept secret for half a century. His account, corroborated by 3 other veterans, was utterly unlike any official record. Reichard and about 19 other soldiers were in their trenches, roughly 150 meters from the battlefield, when they observed something extraordinary, a thick cloud, almost appearing solid, silently and mysteriously descending directly above the Norfolk unit. According to Reichard, he and his comrades saw a formation of 6 to 8 brownish-gray clouds of peculiar shape, like enormous loaves of bread hovering above the battlefield where the Norfolks were engaged. One of those low-flying clouds descended directly above the advancing troops. About an hour later, it very quietly rose back up, merged with the clouds above, and drifted away. When the cloud dispersed and visibility was restored, the forest below was empty. No soldiers, no bodies, no abandoned weapons, no traces of any kind, as though 800 human beings had never existed on that patch of earth. 3. What the Turks said, and why it is the most terrifying detail. After the war ended, the British formally requested Turkey to return prisoners of war. This was standard procedure after any conflict. Both sides exchanged prisoner lists, repatriated their people, and closed the accounts of loss. The Turkish side replied, "We never saw those soldiers. Not they died, not they escaped, not we don't know where they are, but rather, we never laid eyes on them." This was highly anomalous. In every other engagement at Gallipoli, the Turkish side could supply information about those they had captured, killed, or buried. But regarding the Norfolk unit, a unit that had charged directly into Turkish lines, they had nothing. No memory, no records. As though in Turkish eyes the entire unit had never arrived. This raises an inescapable question. If they were not destroyed by Turkish forces, not taken prisoner, and no bodies were found, where did they go? 4. Mysterious traces. and what was deliberately left unsaid. In 1919, a search party was sent to Gallipoli to locate the bodies of the missing soldiers. A chaplain named Charles Pierre Point Edwards found the Norfolk regiment's badges along with about 180 remains scattered around a farmhouse in the forest where the unit had last been seen. 80 remains, but the unit had numbered over 250 men, with other sources citing 800. Where were the rest? Something does not add up in the official account. If all of them died in battle, why were so few bodies found? Why were the recovered remains scattered so strangely, far apart? And why did it take 4 full years, from 1915 to 1919, before anyone went looking? Stranger still, a Turkish farmer returning to his land after the war reported finding it, covered with the decomposing bodies of British soldiers, which he threw into a nearby ravine. No memory of any battle. Just corpses appearing from nowhere, as though they had been placed back there after having gone somewhere else entirely. 5 similar disappearances, a haunting pattern. This was not the first time, nor the last, that humanity would confront the phenomenon of collective disappearances with no explanation. Notably, Reichardt himself, when recounting his story, mentioned not 1 but 3 strange disappearances. At Khartoum in 1885, a Scottish engineering company at the Khyber Pass, and the Sherwood Foresters Unit at Hill 60 in Gallipoli. In 1587, all 117 settlers of the Roanoke colony in North America vanished without a trace, no bodies, no signs of conflict, only the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post with no known meaning. In 1900, 4 lighthouse keepers on Scotland's Flannan Isles vanished in the night, supper half eaten on the table, coats still hanging on their hooks, no signs of haste or panic. There is a terrifying pattern running through all these disappearances. They were sudden, complete, and traceless. 6. Multi-layered space-time. When physics touches the edge of mystery. To understand what may have happened at Gallipoli that afternoon, we must step outside ordinary thinking and look at what modern science, not science fiction, but genuine theoretical physics, is actually saying. In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett III proposed a theory that shook the foundations of physics. Instead of observation collapsing quantum possibilities into a single outcome, every possibility occurs, but in separate parallel realities. String theory holds that the universe has not just 4 dimensions, but potentially 11, existing simultaneously. Those extra dimensions are curled up at an infinitesimally small scale, far below the threshold of any instrument we currently possess. But what if, at certain points in space-time, those curled dimensions were to unfold? Physics calls these structures wormholes. And although they remain theoretical, they are forbidden by no known law of physics. Now ask this: if at Gallipoli that afternoon, at the point of intersection between the Norfolk troops and that strange cloud, a wormhole had opened, even for just 1 hour, what would become of the 800 soldiers who stepped into it? They would not die. They would not be captured. They would simply go somewhere else. 7. The cloud that was not a cloud, what the witnesses truly saw. Let us return to Frederick Reichardt's testimony and view it through a different lens. He described 6 to 8 clouds shaped like loaves of bread, not the random, drifting forms of natural cloud. They moved together in formation. One of them actively descended, not drifting on the wind, but descending with intent, directly above the Norfolk unit. After roughly 1 hour, it slowly and silently rose back up, rejoined the remaining formation, and all of them drifted away northward. This is not a description of a weather cloud. This is a description of an object exhibiting deliberate, purposeful behavior. During the 1960s and 1970s, as a wave of UFO research surged across Britain and America, The story of the vanished regiment began attracting the attention of researchers compiling evidence of human abductions by extraterrestrial beings. But there is a detail few people notice. Reichardt refused to allow his testimony to be recorded. He agreed only to provide a handwritten statement after weeks of hesitation. Why would someone wanting to share the truth be so reluctant? 8. The time tunnel hypothesis, and why it is not necessarily madness. String theory, one of the most seriously pursued frameworks in modern physics, championed by leading scientists at MIT, Princeton, and CERN, holds that the universe has not 4 dimensions but potentially 11, existing simultaneously. What if there exist tunnels, extraordinarily short passages, connecting 2 points in space-time that by normal routes might be separated by billions of light years, or worse, by an entire dimension of reality? Physics calls these wormholes. And though they remain theoretical, no known law of physics forbids them. Now ask if at Gallipoli that afternoon, a wormhole opened for just 1 hour. What would become of 800 soldiers stepping into it? They would not die. They would not be captured. They would simply go somewhere else. 9. They are still alive in another world. This is the most disturbing part. Not because it is certainly true, but because it cannot be proven false. The many worlds theory proposes that at every moment, every choice, every event, our universe branches into countless alternative universes. Those universes are entirely separate and cannot intersect. But if those universes were sometimes to intersect, even briefly, even for just 1 hour at a single point on the Earth's surface, then those who stepped into that intersection might have been transferred to the other side. On that other side, there may be no war, no Gallipoli, no sound of guns at all. And perhaps those 800 soldiers are sitting on some strange land, looking at each other in bewilderment, unable to understand why the sky here is a slightly different color, why the hills here are shaped differently from what they remember, and why, however hard they try, they cannot find the way home. 10. The question humanity is not yet ready to answer. More than 110 years have passed since that afternoon at Gallipoli. The question remains unanswered by anyone. But there is one thing we must acknowledge. We inhabit a universe 95% of which we do not understand. Dark matter and dark energy. 2 things science knows exist yet cannot see, cannot touch, and cannot measure directly, account for over 95% of everything in the universe. The portion of the universe we know and understand, from stars to planets, from atoms to DNA, is merely the remaining 5%. In other words, we are people sitting in an enormous room, proud of having understood it, when in truth we know only a tiny corner under the lamp, while 95% of the room is sunk in complete darkness. In that 95% of darkness, there may be other spatial dimensions, invisible doors, tunnels connecting realities, and entities or natural mechanisms capable of opening and closing those doors. If that is true, then the strange cloud at Gallipoli was not a weather phenomenon, and 800 Norfolk soldiers did not die. They simply went somewhere else. 11. The thing we dare not think about. There is one final question no one wants to speak aloud. If those doors exist, if there are points in space-time where 2 realities touch and a person might accidentally step from this world into another, then it has happened not just once. It happened at Gallipoli, at Roanoke, at Bermuda, perhaps at hundreds, thousands of other places we did not record, do not remember, or have actively tried to forget. And if those doors open at random, following no pattern we understand, then none of us can know for certain that tomorrow morning, when we step out of our front door, the universe we step into is the same universe in which we have spent our entire lives. Gallipoli is still there. Its hills lie still beneath the Turkish sun. And somewhere, in some dimension of reality we cannot see or touch, perhaps 800 soldiers are still looking up at the sky. A strange, unfamiliar sky, wondering how to find their way home.
Voices flow softly in the silence where no one else can go. Underneath the surface, mysteries unfold. Buried in the twilight, stories left untold. Hidden secrets in the dark we find. Hidden secrets locked inside the mind. Hidden secrets waiting to unwind. Eyes that never see us, words that never speak. Down the haunted alleys, in the places bleak. Footsteps in the distance echo through the night, seeking out the secrets in the fading light. Hidden secret in the dark we find. Hidden secret lost inside the mind. Hidden secret waiting to unwind. Eyes that never see